Hi there, I'm Karina Savage, Paediatric Dietitian, mum of two, and founder of Nourish with Karina. I'm really happy that you're here, and I'm here to chat about children who won't try new foods and children who seem stuck on the white diet. So if your child mainly eats white or beige foods such as pasta, rice, bread, crackers, milk, lots of milk, not necessarily, but could be lots of milk. I see a lot of kids that do drink a lot of milk as well as have all of the other white foods. Then you might be feeling like you're constantly trying to get them to try new foods with no success. So you'd love to bring in colour into their day. You'd love to bring in broccoli. You'd love to bring in other grains, but you feel like you're just constantly bashing your head up against a brick wall because they won't eat anything different. So if nothing is working, then I want to start by saying this. This is incredibly common and this is not your fault. But here's the thing most people get wrong. It's not necessarily that you're feeding them the wrong foods. So there's nothing wrong with the white foods, but the problem is when these white foods displace healthier foods all of the time. So when they're always having these white foods and they're displacing these other nutrient-rich foods, that's when the nutrient gaps occur. And that's when the feeding system is likely working against you. So your current feeding system isn't working for you if that's the case. Now we will dive into the strategies to get your child trying new foods very quickly. But before I go on, I wanted to share something personal with you. I just wanted to let you know that I completely understand where you are coming from. If you are currently feeling really frustrated and upset about how your child's eating, because my daughter, when she was about 18 months, 2 years of age, she became super fussy. She became so fussy that she became low in iron. And I distinctly remember this period in her life when she got a virus and she was so unwell that we ended up being admitted to a hospital because she just had no reserves. She was quite lean, super fussy, ate all the white foods, and we later found out that hospital admission that she was low in iron. And it was really a rock bottom moment for me because I kind of felt a bit inadequate because I was a paediatric dietitian and I'd been a paediatric dietitian for 12 years at that point before I'd had my daughter. And I really felt inadequate and often judged actually because my daughter was super fussy and I really struggled to get her to try anything different. And she would just live on pasta and rice and carbs. She loved carbs. And I just remember feeling so clearly that, that lack of power. I felt like I just didn't have any power at mealtimes anymore. And I just didn't know what to do. And I was just thinking, well, why is this not working? Everything that I'd learned at uni, I was applying, but none of it was working. And often it's the things that you see online, like, offer the food or try and hide it in the food and stay calm and don't pressure and all of those things. But it just wasn't working for me. And we were sort of just spiraling downwards and we were certainly not going the right direction. And it was this hospital admission that really made me feel rock bottom or made me realize we'd hit rock bottom. And from that point, I knew that we had to find a new way because if you keep doing the same thing that you're doing and it's not working for you, that's the definition of an insanity, right? And so I guess I was probably going a little bit crazy with the way she was eating. And I don't know, maybe you can relate too, but it was the moment for me that I really went, you know what? If I wanted something to be different, I need to do something different here because it's not working for me right now. And I just needed to not stop trying, but I was trying so hard. I was trying so hard at the dinner table to get her to have one bite and it just wasn't working. And bribing wasn't even working either. And there was something deeper going on and I just had to sort of get out of this circle of despair, this feeding cycle of despair, you would call it. I vividly remember this hummus moment and we were sitting at the dinner table and by then she had started to eat a tiny, tiny bit of broccoli. And I remember this meal and I'd served up, I think it was maybe chicken schnitzel and butterfly pasta because she loved butterfly pasta, she still does. And she'd eaten a bit of broccoli, but predominantly her whole meal was pasta with maybe a few mouthfuls of broccoli, but no protein. And at this point I knew that she was low in iron and I was like, right, you must eat some protein. You must have something that's iron rich. And I think by this point I kind of just flipped and went, right, you're not going anywhere. And I went to the fridge and I got this container of hummus, and I knew that hummus had iron, and I grabbed this soup spoon, dessert spoon, big spoonful of hummus, and I shoved it into her mouth. Probably not my finest moment. Anyway, you know, you're just so desperate to get them to eat, right? And I shoved it into her mouth. And look, my daughter has the most sensitive gag reflex in the world. She was quite a chucky baby. So you can only imagine then what happened after that. So I put the hummus in her mouth. It was too big an amount. So it stuck to the roof of her mouth, was really gluggy. She gagged, she coughed, and then she vomited. And of course, she vomited her whole dinner up. So not only did she vomit up that bit of hummus, or not that she probably even ate any, but she vomited up her pasta and her broccoli. And so I basically sabotaged the entire meal just to try and get a mouthful of hummus into her. And it was at that point I was like, you know what, Karina, this is clearly not working for me. And I'm not sure if you're at that point, but I've certainly had many mums, thousands of mums that I've worked with, parents that I've worked with over the years, and the stories that I've heard from, I knew that I needed to help, join you, Karina, and work with you, Karina, when my daughter ate cake for dinner. Or in my time, I've had only a few weeks ago, actually, I had a parent confess that they offered their child $100 to try a bit of carrot. Previously, I've had $50 as well. So it's incredible the lengths that we go to try to get our children to eat, but it's only because we care, and it's only because we want them to be nourished. And I wanted my daughter to be nourished too, but I couldn't find a way to get her to try new foods and actually get iron-rich foods into her, because I knew that that's what she desperately needed. And I think it adds another layer of stress when they're low in iron and they're underweight and they're fussy, and it's like, oh my gosh, can you just eat? So if you're feeling that way, please know that you are speaking to, well, I'm, yes, an accredited practicing dietitian. I'm a pediatric dietitian. I've been around for 25 years, but I also have had firsthand experience with my own fussy daughter. And I was worried that my son was also going to follow suit, because every single meal that we ate together, she was fussy. And I was like, well, I don't want him to copy her fussy eating behaviors. And so, yeah, every time I came to the table, I was worried. And in a way, sometimes I felt like I sabotaged the meal before I even started, because I just knew that she wasn't going to try. And so maybe my vibe wasn't as good as it should have been. I was just kind of dejected and powerless at the table. So what I needed to do was I stopped and I paused, and I realized that I just needed to find a new way, because, as I said, nothing changes if nothing changes. And I knew that I needed to take a step back and take that 30,000-foot view and look at how I was feeding her. And through much research and trial and error over the years, I have developed my very own framework. It's called Your Child's Feeding Ecosystem, and it comprises the 3 essential components that need to be working well in order to create a healthy eater. It completely changes your mindset and approach to your feeding system at home, which therefore can make or break how your child eats. So feeding is not just about food, and often we're taught what our children need to eat, all the colors of the rainbow, but we're not taught how to make that happen. And often we fall back on what we perhaps were taught as children, or what our parents did when we were sitting at the dinner table together, and we really rely on, you know, our own resources to try to get our children to eat better, but it doesn't always work. And often it's a real challenge, because there is no feeding kids rule book, and so we really rely on the tools that we know or we can grasp at to get our children to eat better. But often it's not enough, and often we need more support in order to improve the way our children eat. And that's where this framework can really support parents, because it really looks at the 3 essential factors that create a healthy eater. So if you're just sitting there thinking, well, why won't my child just eat what I want them to eat? Or am I doing this right? Am I coming to the dinner table with the right mindset or approach? Or am I using the right words? Or If you're worried that this is going to get worse, then I've been there too. Honestly, as I said, I totally get where you're at. And I just want you to know that you can absolutely regain power at mealtimes and feel in control of mealtimes again. And whilst I don't love saying this, it can absolutely happen. And I've seen it time and time again in clinic. If nothing changes, then kids can get narrower and narrower and narrower with their approach to eating and the foods that they eat, which means that their nutrient deficiency risk increases exponentially. So for every year that they don't eat iron-rich foods, then their risk of iron deficiency increases. Or for every year that they just live on lots of milk, and I've seen kids that have, 1 litre, 2 litres of milk a day, that does increase their risk of nutrient deficiency. So it is important to try and get on top of it, and it's wonderful that you're here to learn some ways to get them to eat new foods. Most parents that I work with are doing so many things that they think are right. So they're offering the vegetables again and again. They're encouraging the child just to take one bite. They are hiding vegetables. They might be trying to stay calm at dinner time. But sometimes, it's hard. And sometimes it's hard when you've got another partner that's also worried, and perhaps they're a little bit more forceful with their conversation to the child or the pressure that's being applied. We try to be patient. So we try and do all the right things, but still they just eat the plain pasta, or still they, say, yeah, I'm not trying that. That's disgusting. So what do we do, right? What do we do? Well, as I said, we often will just fall back on what we know. So we strongly encourage them, or you can do what I do and shove hummus into their mouth. That was only once, I have to say. But we don't want to battle, right? But we don't want them to go to bed hungry either. So sometimes we're cooking 3 different meals, which is a nightmare and frustrating. Sometimes we're throwing out food. We don't want to be doing that either. Sometimes we're bribing, as I said, $50, $100. And so we end up in this loop, right? And it's frustrating. It's like a white diet loop. So they eat the white foods, they fill up, they're not hungry. They refuse to try the new foods. We offer the safe foods again because that's what we know that they're going to eat. And it's just this vicious cycle. And it's what I call the feeding cycle of despair. And I'm not sure if you can relate to that, but many parents that I work with do. And the advice of just exposing them to new foods, it doesn't always work. It rarely works. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to me now. You wouldn't be sitting here listening to me now. So your child isn't choosing white foods to be difficult. They're choosing it because white foods are predictable. They're low sensory, and a lot of parents that I work with have children with sensory issues. They may have ADHD, they may have autism, whichever level. White foods are easy to chew and swallow. They're often meltable in the mouth. They're quick energy, so they're given a quick hit. They feel good. They're palatable. They're addictive. Often they're higher in salt or sugar. Companies know exactly how to make these foods addictive. But underneath, when the child's eating mostly these white foods, as I said, they're missing out on these key nutrients like iron and zinc and fiber and healthy fats. And that's what parents worry about. And I've been worried about that before. I totally understand, and can influence appetite, influence energy, and influence gut health, which is so crucial to our brain health and our systemic health. I was only talking about gut health this morning on Channel 7 Sunrise. It's so integral to everything. And the more variety we can bring into our child's day, the better their gut health will be as well. And look, don't get caught up if you hear that whole we need to eat 30 plant foods a week. That puts too much pressure on. Let's not aim for 30 plant foods a week, but let's maybe aim for 1 or 2 new foods when your child's ready, but let's try and get it happening sooner rather than later, right? Because we want your child to feel comfortable, supported, and excited and inquisitive. So we need to create an environment where they are wanting to try these new foods, and you can sit back and watch it all unfold. And that's where the feeding ecosystem method really supports you to support your child, because feeding isn't just about food. We need to factor in the child, their appetite, their sensory preferences, the development, the nutrient status. So everything to do with the child and why they may or may not be wanting to eat foods right now. The parent, how you respond when they say yuck, how you offer foods, the conversations that happen. There's a whole lot to unpack there with parents and our parent approach and role modeling, because monkey see, monkey do. We have a massive impact on how our children eat. The environment is the third one. So we've got the child, the parent, the environment. They're the 3 essential components of my feeding ecosystem that I talk about inside my Feeding Kids Reset, which is my flagship program, which will teach you exactly how to transform your child's health and nutrition. The program that gets your child trying new foods, that reduces stress and pressure around feeding and gives you peace of mind. Because as I said, when one of those three components of the feeding ecosystem is off, not working well, feeding becomes hard. So remember, it's not about just getting your child to eat broccoli. It's about setting up a system where broccoli becomes exciting and broccoli becomes yummy. And it's just setting that background system up to run. And that really sets them up for life, because we want to set them up to be a healthy eater for life, to love good food for life, because they carry these taste preferences with them into adulthood. And that's our job as parents, to create really healthy eaters that love food, that there's no food rules, food restriction, food obsession, just a simple environment where they develop a love for good food. Okay, so let's make this really practical. Here are 3 things that you can do right now. Number 1, this is important. Don't remove the safe food. Don't remove the white food, because that is what they know and like and trust. And so we don't want to remove the safe food, but we want to value add to it, right? So don't remove the pasta. Don't take away the white bread, because when the safe food disappears, that can increase their anxiety. So if you serve them a completely new meal that you'd like them to eat, but they are not comfortable with, then their anxiety can skyrocket. If your expectations up here, but where they're at is here, and there's a big disconnect, that can create a lot of stress and anxiety for you and your child. So what we need to do is lower our expectations, give them their safe food, but what we also want to do is try to gently stretch them. So try to value add. Can we add olive oil to the pasta? Can we add a tiny bit of chicken on the side in a learning bowl? Something that you're eating that you'd love your child to try, but maybe they're not ready yet, but they see you eating it, wonderful. You put it in a side learning plate for them. Maybe on toast, if they're just having perhaps butter at the moment, try and to a little bit of the corner, add a little bit of avocado or a little bit of egg on the side. Maybe with rice, you sneak in, not sneak, we can sneak, but maybe put 2 cashews next to the rice if they're not ready to eat perhaps the steak that you're eating. So we want to try to value add, but don't take away the safe food, just value add to the side of their safe food. That's really important. Okay, so number 1, don't remove the safe food. This is really important from an anxiety perspective. Also nutrition. You know, there's still nutrition in white pasta. There's still nutrition in white rice. Don't take it away. Always include a safe food on their plate. Number 2, value add to what's already there, ideally with something that you're eating so that they can see you eating. That role modeling is subconsciously so powerful. It's planting seeds that may not be growing today or tomorrow, but they will grow later. So value add with foods that you are eating, that they can see you eating and enjoying, so important. But perhaps they're not ready to eat it yet. So pop it on a side learning plate, but make sure you've got something there, but they don't have to eat it. Okay, so it's just there, it's value adding. Means sure, if you can add olive oil, extra virgin olive oil to the pasta, amazing, great. And if you can get them having a couple of cashews on the side, as long as they're, not too young and they can tolerate nuts. But yeah, it's really important to try and value add to their safe foods and make sure that you're eating those foods too. So it's the safe food, value adding to that with foods that you're eating with them. And number 3, we need to protect their appetite. And this is really important. I saw a child the other day that was drinking 2 liters of cow's milk a day. There's no way that that child is going to be hungry. Granted, they're a little bit older, but still, any child that's drinking, more than a couple of cups of milk a day is not going to have an appetite at certain meals and snacks because they're filling up on milk. Constant grazing is another one, or snacks too close to meals is another one. So there's many reasons why we could be sabotaging our child's appetite, which will then, make them appear like they're fussy, but maybe they're just not hungry because they've already eaten their quota for the day, because little ones have little tummies. So we need to make sure that we are protecting appetite and setting up an environment that enables them to enjoy food with you at mealtimes when you're wanting them to eat. Okay, so the 3 things, remember, are don't remove the safe food, don't remove the white. Number 2, you build around it with foods that you're also eating. And number 3, you support the system. So you make sure that you are protecting appetite. You set up a structure that's actually going to support their appetite. And that's really important, because otherwise they're going to be fussy when they're actually not fussy, they're just full. Sometimes we can misunderstand that. Okay, so what I've said, those 3 things are a really great start, but there are many other practical strategies I've got for you. Underlying fussy eating is many factors. So that feeding ecosystem is complex, but not complex. So once you understand it, it's easy, okay? You just need to understand the key principles to do with why the child might be fussy, the key principles to what we are doing and why we may be actually exacerbating fussy eating, and the key principles in the child's environment that could be making it harder for them to try new foods. And once you understand those key components, you create a much more successful feeding ecosystem for your child, for your family. Everything works well. So instead of trying harder, I want you to do these 2 things. Number 1, truly understand what's going on with your fussy eater. And number 2, change the system. Because unless you understand what's going on, just like a car that's broken down, if you don't understand why the car's broken down, you're not going to be able to fix it properly. So you need to understand what's going on for your child and why they're not trying new foods, and then you change the system. You get to work, you look at their feeding ecosystem and you go, right, these are the exact steps that we need to take that's going to make a big difference. And you know what? Sometimes it's just a couple of things you've got to tweak and change, and it makes all the difference. But the understanding of why is where it needs to start, and then you can actually make that change and make a big difference. And that's the work that I do with parents. That's the conversations that we have and the transformations that occur inside Nourish with Karina, because they do understand why and they know exactly what to do. So if you're listening to this and thinking, this is exactly what's happening in my family, Karina, you are speaking to me. This is exactly what's happening to me. This is exactly what I'm thinking. This is exactly how my child is behaving. Then the next step is to go deeper with me. Inside the Feeding Kids Reset, I guide you through the full feeding ecosystem model, how to align the parent, the child, the environment to get it right, to get it working well, and how to improve nutrition without the battles, and to move from white foods to get your child trying new foods without having to bribe or pressure at mealtime. So you don't need to try harder, you just need the right system. And most parents, wait for the right time or try and, there's hope that their child's going to outgrow fussy eating, but often it doesn't. And we really need to set up an environment now so that your child doesn't increase the risk of nutrient deficiency. I'm here to support you. Look, you can absolutely keep doing what you're doing and hope it improves, but I see over and over again that children just become fussier and parents become more stressed and more frustrated because it just goes on for 3 months and then 6 months and 12 months and just becomes more and more frustrating. And then they start talking about their friends about it. Then the little one hears it and then it creates a story in their own mind that they're a fussy eater. And so it's better to just get some help now and get some strategies in your pocket now that are going to make the world a difference. And as I said, I had to create my own strategies because what I'd learned at uni and what I see online, it doesn't work. Okay, so that's why I'm here to help you. And I've got hundreds and hundreds of mums, thousands actually, that I've worked with over my 25 years that I've taught this method to, and it just makes such a difference. So look, you can see all the reviews on my website, but I'm just here, mum to mum talking now, or parent to parent talking now about how I can help you, because I really want to help you. Because once you see what's going on and how to make a difference, you really won't go back. And just imagine in a few weeks from now, you'll have calmer meals, you have your child trying new foods, you'll feel less stressed, you'll have more confidence around feeding, you'll regained power around meal times, you will feel completely different. I don't want you circling around in this feeding cycle of despair in another 12 months. Sometimes the cost of inaction is greater than the cost of action. If you think now about the cost of, the vitamin gummies that you buy, or the trips to the doctor because your child's sick because their gut health's not right, or the worry, like the mental load, the cost to our mental stress about worrying at night about your child and frustrating meal times and cooking 3 different meals or throwing out food because, they've refused another meal. The cost is huge. So I just want you to consider that when you're just weighing up whether to join or not. Look, it's all there waiting for you inside Nourish with Karina. It includes my Feeding Kids Reset program, which includes my feeding ecosystem framework. So you can dive into all of that today. And if you don't love it, the first 14 days is on me. So there is no risk. So I'm here to help you as much as possible. Please let me know if you've got any questions. Send us an email to hello@nourishwithkarina.com. Otherwise, click on the button, join today, and I can't wait to see you inside. Bye for now.